My name is Chief Koti. I'm going to be with you this morning as we go through the program. We will kickstart at exactly 8:30, which is 8 minutes from now. So please do bear with us as we get on with our program. We had said actually we're kicking off at around 8:45, thereabouts, 8:30, 8:45. So please enjoy the last bits of your breakfast. And in 8 minutes' time, we get cracking with our speeches, and then we launch this exciting project. Who's excited to launch this with me? Are you excited? Are you excited? No? Are you excited? Are you looking forward to it? Yeah, I am looking forward to it. I think it's revolutionary. So today, you are part of history because it has never happened in Zimbabwe, this kind of thing. So please do bear with us. 8 minutes time, we kick off. It's actually 7 from now. So please enjoy the breakfast. I'll be with you shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, it is exactly 32 past 8. Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome along to this exciting edition of the, I want to call it Zimex. I'm really, shall we? Well, anyway, we're launching something absolutely exciting today, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chief Koti, like I said. I'm going to be with you this morning as your host. And we are here to witness a groundbreaking, invention, I guess. But we're launching quite an amazing product that will bring agriculture into another level and linking it to the commodities market in a very, very big way and a smart way. That's how we roll nowadays, yeah? So let me not take any more of your time, ladies and gentlemen. Let me take this time to invite our chairman to come through and give us the welcome remarks. As he comes, so we need to encourage him, guys, and we will be doing a lot of encouragement today. And let's practice this before he steps up. Ladies and gentlemen, we're encouraged by clapping our hands quite hard. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, go. That was just a trial run. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Derek onto the stage to give us the remarks. Sir, good morning and welcome.
Thank you. Our Minister of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Resettlement, representative of the Agricultural Marketing Authority, Mr. Mudzamiriri, the World Bank, Grain Millers Association of Zimbabwe, Stock Feeds Manufacturers Association, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted and honored to welcome you all to the Zimbabwe Mercantile Exchange Breakfast Forum for Commodity Buyers. We're privileged to have you here with us today. As a board, our key responsibility is to ensure that we operate a commodities exchange that is efficient and of economic value. A credible exchange across the world consists of a few key elements. One, it has to have a very strong legal and regulatory framework. Secondly, it must have fair and transparent market operations. And thirdly, it must have a strong and resilient technology and physical infrastructure. I'm proud to advise that over the past 2 years, the ZMX promoters, my board, and management of ZMX have worked tirelessly to ensure that we have a commodities exchange model that we can all be proud of. This has resulted in ZMX being structured as a public sector-led initiative with the support of the government of Zimbabwe and with development partners such as the World Bank Group. Its operational framework and trading rules have all been gazetted in law through various acts and statutory instruments. ZMX is quite simply a marketplace designed to assist buyers to find easily the best quality commodities at the best prices through a guaranteed clearing, settlement, and delivery system. It is an additional alternative to what is currently obtaining. And the participation on the ZMX is truly on a willing buyer, willing seller basis. The introduction of this commodities exchange has been geared towards creating a centralized, efficient, and transparent marketplace for all commodities that are eligible for trading. ZMX is designed to operate a warehouse receipt system and a spot market trading platform. The ZMX seeks to do the following: to reduce post-harvest losses through giving access to efficient logistics infrastructure and world-class warehousing. It also facilitates financing for both buyers and producers. And thirdly, it allows commodity buyers and off-takers to easily access the desired commodities at market-driven prices. As management will shortly demonstrate after this speech, participation on the ZMX is first of all voluntary. It is simple, it is straightforward, but it is secure and efficient. We strongly believe that ZMX has the potential to change the lives of every single Zimbabwean, and it has the potential to go beyond our borders by connecting markets abroad to meet your demands as off-takers, processors, and producers of various commodities. I therefore call upon each and every one of you this morning to share your experiences and to share your invaluable insights with us in a manner that enables us to all be on the same path and walk this journey together to a destination that we agree is best for us all. Let us therefore look beyond today. Let us embrace innovation, and let us build a tomorrow that we can truly be proud of for generations to come. So ladies and gentlemen, I believe that this engagement couldn't have come at a better time. We're at the start of our 2022-2023 agricultural season. And as the ZMX, we received approval to run a pilot for soybean. And this has allowed us to trade what has traditionally been known as a controlled commodity. This achievement would not have been possible if it wasn't for the dedication and the noteworthy contributions of so many of the people who are seated here in this room. And to you all, my sincere appreciation. On behalf of the board of ZMX, I wish to express our deep gratitude to the government of Zimbabwe for their continued support, to the regulatory authorities, to the developmental partners, and to our commodity buyers and producers. And we know that your consistent and unwavering cooperation and trust is what has allowed us to arrive at this point. I wish you all very great success as we carry on through this breakfast forum and we continue to the work ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Shall we encourage him one more time, ladies and gentlemen? So I ran ahead of myself and I said ZMX, but you know, the gentleman rightfully articulated what it's called. It's the ZMX. Say it with me. ZMX. ZMX. It's got a buzz to it. And I think it's going to take the world by storm. Ladies and gentlemen, in that vein, would like to really thank our chairman for coming through and giving us those wise words. We do know that you've been working really hard behind the scenes to make sure that this product is here. And of course, it will take the world by storm, like I did say. And at this point in time, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call upon the Agricultural Marketing Authority of Zimbabwe to come through, and today we have the CEO who is represented by Mr. Peter Mudzimiri, the head for compliance and corporate secretary as well at the Agricultural Marketing Authority. Let's give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, as he comes onto stage to talk to us this morning. Let's encourage him a little bit more, guys.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, allow me to ride on the protocol already established. My name is Peter Mudzimiri, not Mudzamiri. I'm Peter Mudzimiri. And I'll present on behalf of Mr. Clever Isaiah, who is the CEO of the Agricultural Marketing Authority. So today I will speak to 6 things. I'll start by speaking to who is AMA, and then the functions of AMA, and I'll touch on the legislation governing the ZMX operations. I'll also speak to the functions of the exchange and the role of AMA in ZMX implementation, and also briefly on the future of ZMX. So who is AMA? AMA is a statutory body. It is established in terms of the Agricultural Marketing Authority Act, that is chapter 18.24. And in terms of its overall functions, AMA is a facilitator. It is also a supervisor, a coordinator, and a regulator of all agricultural production, marketing, and processing in Zimbabwe. In terms of the vision, as AMA, we are looking for to a sustainable and prosperous agricultural sector driven by effective marketing regulatory services by 2030. And what do? We provide a conducive regulatory environment for sustainable marketing and production of agricultural products in Zimbabwe. And in terms of our values, we have got teamwork, professionalism, integrity, transparency, accountability, and innovativeness. I think Chief Koti has alluded to innovation, which is what ZMX is all about. We're trying to find innovative ways for commodity marketing. And then in terms of functions of AMA, we are there to regulate the participation in the production, buying, and processing of agricultural products by all our producers, our buyers, our processors. And our main functions as the Agricultural Marketing Authority is to create market linkages. We strive to link farmers with markets. We also do research and market development, and obviously working with other like-minded organizations like Zimtrade. We are also responsible for a value chain financing. This is where we raise agro bills, principally for our strategic crops such as maize, wheat, and soybeans. And we also do advisory services. We also advise our parent ministry, which is the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water, and Rural Development. We also administer a number of statutory instruments, including the listing rules for the ZMX. This is in terms of our regulatory function. And then one of the other strategic responsibilities for the authority is to promote the production of strategic crops. So in terms of this function, we then register contractors and encourage the private sector to come in and assist in terms of production. Then, what is the legislation governing the ZMX operations? I think this is important that we point out at the outset the legislative structure of the ZMX. Obviously, ZMX is a company, and it is governed under the Companies and Other Business Entities Act, and there are certain obligations in terms of reporting that, like in other company, they are supposed to abide by. And then there's the Zimbabwe Mercantile Exchange Rules. This is Statutory Instrument 184 of 2021, which obviously was made under the Agricultural Marketing Authority Act. These are the rules, ladies and gentlemen, that regulate the participation on the exchange. And also, there are other various statutes that the ZMX interacts with in terms of the players that are also registered under the Securities and Exchange Act, the Grain Marketing Act, which sets up the Grain Marketing Board, the Agricultural Marketing Authority Act, is alluded to before, the Collective Investment Schemes, Warehouse Receipt Act, and also the Banking Act. So in terms of all these statutes, all those players that are registered under those acts can also come in and participate at the exchange. So a brief on the functions of the exchange, although it's not my area, but I'll touch briefly. So this is a marketplace which aims to enhance efficient, transparency, and orderly trading of commodities. It is there to reduce systemic risks and to promote market integrity as well as public confidence. And it also promotes public education on orderly marketing of produce, and then to disseminate also market information and price information. It is important in any market that information is available. And also to deploy mechanisms for dispute resolutions. In any relationship, disputes are bound to come up, and it is important that the exchange also deploys those dispute resolution mechanisms. So what is the role of AMA in the ZMX implementation? AMA has an overarching role in terms of regulating the commodities exchange. It is there to ensure that there is transparency and there is also fair play in terms of what happens on the platform. And then specifically, AMA also registered some of the participants on the exchange, and these are your farmers, these are your buyers, your traders, your processors, and also in terms of the marketing system itself, AMA is there to facilitate the rules of engagement, and as you are aware, the spot market rules have already been established in terms of statutory instrument 184 of 2021. And also to ensure that there's a credible, tradable, and enforceable contracts between the participants in the spot as well as the futures market. And to also ensure that there's timely contract dispute resolution mechanisms. And then another role speaks to ensuring a functional system of grades and standards. Some of the statutory instruments that AMA then administers, like the grains and oilseeds, there are standards that are set up in there in terms of the products. So this is where we also come in to ensure that there's quality, there's classification, grading, and proper packaging of products, and also to then arbitrate over product quality disputes. And then in terms of agricultural market information management, as AMA, work with ZMX to ensure that we constantly monitor marketing and trading conditions. We collect data on market prices, market trend analysis, and then disseminate that information, and also periodically furnish the stakeholders with market information. And then in terms of the future of ZMX, from a regulator's point of view, what are we looking for? To date, we have 49 commodities, grains and oilseeds, horticulture and livestock that are listed under the warehouse receipt system. And only 2 strategic crops have so far been onboarded. This is wheat and soybean. I think the chairman has talked about the controlled products. Wheat and soybean are controlled products, but now the government has approved that these commodities be traded on the exchange. So what is our call? We are calling all investors to consider setting up warehousing for horticulture and livestock, so that these commodities can also be traded on the platform. And we are also looking for export opportunities to be also part of the ZMX future pathway. And with these remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I end my presentation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mudzimiri. Shall we encourage him one more time? So you see the things that have been done here, they are authorized because the Agricultural Marketing Authority has put a seal of approval onto this project. Shall we give them a round of applause and thank them so ever much for making sure that this is a product that is endorsed by the government of Zimbabwe. I wonder, Colin, when you're going to actually come up with something for tourism. We're waiting. We are waiting. Speaking of Colin, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to invite him to come onto the podium to give us the mechanics and explain a little further as far as the technicalities of the ZMX platform. Let's give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, as he comes through.
Our Director of Ceremonies, Chief, I think the invitation you have extended is not going to be ignored. We are on our way to the tourism sector. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here, and I extend a warm welcome to all of you, and thank you for coming to spend time with us. I will ride on protocols observed already. My name is Colin Tafumane. I'm currently the CEO of Zimbabwe Mercantile Exchange. What I'm going to do is to just give you a brief presentation on what ZMX is all about in practical terms. And we have decided to have this session specifically targeted at commodity buyers, and to try to demonstrate what this initiative means to commodity buyers, and what opportunities and options are available to you. So the Zimbabwe Mercantile Exchange is licensed, as you have just heard, by the AMA, and it operates a warehouse receipt system as well as a spot market trading platform. I think that distinction is very important in terms of understanding the roles and responsibilities of ZMX. It is a private sector-led initiative, meaning that it was initiated by the private sector that then went to the government for necessary approvals, both legislative, policy, and the like. And the government saw it fit to then take part as a partner in the initiative. So therefore, it became a PPP arrangement, which had very strong support from our development partners led by the World Bank. At the moment, the ownership structure of ZMX is as shown on the screen, with FinSec, which is the Financial Securities Exchange, an alternative trading platform which is registered as a securities exchange for financial securities. FinSec, this is the one that was behind the establishment of the trading mechanisms of the commodity exchange. That's FinSec. There is CBZ Holdings. Apologies for the mistake. It's not CBZ Bank, it's CBZ Holdings as a shareholder. TSL Limited. TSL and FinSec were the founders of ZMX, and TSL was coming in with expertise in logistics and infrastructure. Then, as I've mentioned, Government of Zimbabwe is also got a stake in the commodities exchange. So what motivated the establishment of ZMX? Among other reasons for us coming up with this initiative, we looked at our markets, we looked at mispricing of commodities. Always, season after season, year after year, there's always a debate about what is the correct price of commodities. Who determines the price? Who actually tells the other person that this commodity, the price should be this? That question, we believe it required a commodity exchange to come in place so that that question can be put to bed. Seasonality of supply of commodities. Most of our commodities are weather driven, and summer crops, we have peaks when there is production, and then the rest of the year, maybe there will be no production. Again, commodity exchanges come in to smoothen the acquisition of commodities that are prone to seasonality, seasonal fluctuations. Capital. So we looked at inventory that gets into warehouses, both within the processor's premises or rented warehouses, as dormant capital that can also be sweated through an organized mechanism that securitizes the commodities to make them instruments that can be traded, that can also facilitate financing arrangements. Inconsistent application of grading standards is also what motivated us to come up with this facility. Information asymmetry, logistical challenges, and most importantly, inadequate private sector agricultural financing. This is an area that is very important in the sense that when we are talking about financing in agriculture, we normally always think about banks, we normally think about credit facilities, we normally think about lending. But there is a viable capital market that is dominated by investors, pension funds. You all contribute to pension funds. When they're getting that liquidity, they must deploy it in areas that generate returns for the beneficiaries. That capital must also fully find its way in financing agriculture. And we thought the missing link when you talk to investors, when you talk to capital market investors, they have minimum standards that they demand before they deploy their capital into an asset. And a commodity exchange goes a long way in helping agriculture meet the investment grade standards that capital market investors demand. And that was one of the biggest motivation to unlock that funding that is not yet really prominent in agricultural sector. So in response to that, we then came up with a model that we thought spoke to those challenges, spoke to our exacting situation in this country. And our model having also scanned the world, looked at other countries, we decided to come up with a very simplified model that is structured, anchored on 3 pillars. Number 1, warehouse receipt system. Warehouse receipt system is actually a viable business operation on its own. It just relates to an establishment of a centralized database of commodities that have been harvested and deposited into warehouse infrastructure, and a warehouse, and a warehouse receipt is issued. Now, this warehouse receipt, rather than it being a mere evidence of storage, what has happened is that the warehouse receipt has been recognized as a security in terms of the Securities Act, which means it is now a security that is just like shares, that is like bonds, that is the most important feature of a warehouse receipt. So it's just not an ordinary acknowledgement of receiving goods. It is actually a security that can actually be acceptable in the financial services. So the operation of a warehouse receipt system is a major part of what ZMX does. Secondly, establishment of a spot market trading platform. So suppose we just decided to end at warehouse receipts. It means the holder of a warehouse receipt, their rights include just withdrawing the commodities or getting finance from banks against the warehouse receipt, and it ends there. In rare cases, you could do what we call over-the-counter transactions, where you sell to someone, you call someone to buy your warehouse receipt, and you go and arrange with the storage facility to say the commodities under this warehouse receipt are now belong to so and so. Now, that becomes cumbersome. So to make the warehouse receipt an attractive instrument, you now need a centralized trading platform where holders of warehouse receipts can now trade that warehouse receipt in an orderly, organized, transparent, and efficient fashion. That's what brings in the pillar that speaks to commodity spot market trading, which is the second pillar. The third pillar, which will be coming very shortly, is now establishing a futures market, so that you buyers, you don't have to wait for when the commodity is off the ground. You buy in future. You buy 18 months in advance. You buy 24 months in advance, and you lock the price. So you now have predictability in terms of your production lines. You now have predictability in terms of the price. And the other side, which is the producers, they are also compelled to honor their, their obligations. What is the difference between that and the existing contract farming? Contract farming is bilateral. You are at the mercy of the other side that you go and contract with. If there are 10,000 farmers, you are going to need to have an arrangement with those 10,000 farmers, each and every one of them. But when we have an exchange-driven futures market, you don't need to know what is on the other side. The exchange is the one that deals with that. You just buy your futures contract on the exchange. The farmer also comes in on the other side, and the exchange is there to guarantee performance of the contract on both sides. So this is just an illustration of how everything fits. Do not worry too much about the clutter. There is some order in there somehow. So what we are just saying is that in the middle there is the engine, which is the central warehouse receipt system, the database that shows the storage facilities across the country, what commodities are in those facilities, and who are the depositors who own the commodities in those facilities on a centralized database. The importance of doing that is someone who is in Mutare can actually transact on a commodity that is sitting in Bulawayo if it needs to be delivered to a processing plant in Bulawayo. So you now have visibility of where everything is. Each contract or each warehouse receipt will actually tell you where that commodity is physically located, so that you make informed decisions that now factor in the logistics involved depending on the location of the commodity. That is the importance of the centralized warehouse receipt system at the center. On the left-hand side, we now have designated warehouses that must be connected to the central warehouse receipt system that is being operated by ZMX. So all warehouses participating must meet the regulatory requirements from the plant quarantine, at the same time, the technology and technical requirements of ZMX for them to be connected. These warehouses now then get connected to the depositors who are the producers at the top there. They are cooperatives, either individual, in cooperatives and all that. And underneath, they are also connected to independent quality inspection and quality assurance companies who actually now are the custodians of the standards that we want to maintain in terms of grading. One of the issues that we've been hearing about is the assurance of the quality of the commodity that the buyer is supposed to buy. This is what the commodity exchange comes in to do. And to further emphasize on that point, the warehouse receipt system is anchored on the Warehouse Receipt Act and warehouse receipt regulations that compel the warehouse operator is responsible for guaranteeing that the quality or the grade that is put on the warehouse receipt when it is being issued, the depositor is assured of getting exactly that grade on demand of the commodity. And it has criminal penalties on anything that varies from the issued warehouse receipt, which varies from what is being alleged by the warehouse. So there's those strong protections. When you are buying grade A commodity, you have the right to get grade A. If you don't get it, you have recourse at law. And this is all formalized through the operation of the warehouse receipt system. On the right-hand side is now what is normally associated with the commodity exchange, which is the spot market, which is also linked to the central warehouse receipt system, and it now is connected underneath to a depository, a clearing and settlement system that ensures that we achieve what we call delivery versus payment. So if you are a buyer, you pay for the commodity, you must get the commodity within 3 days. Not in physical terms, but getting title to the warehouse receipt, which entitles you to now withdraw the commodity. This is driven by the clearing and settlement system that is connected to the trading system. At the top, there are digital platforms that enable you, everyone who participates and eligible, to access the commodity exchange from wherever they are. You can access through the web, you can access through mobile app, and for the retail market, they can access using the USSD platform. So you don't have to drive to a commodity exchange to transact. You can do it from the comfort of your offices. The last piece, which is underneath, in the middle, underneath the central warehouse receipt, is the banks and lenders. So we have a module or a facility that integrates banks so that when you are a holder of a warehouse receipt and you want to access facilities, just at the click of a button, you actually access financing facilities. So what happens, those banks, as we are going to show you, the 5 banks that we have onboarded, they actually register their term sheets against each commodity on the warehouse receipt system. And when you click, you'll be able to see which bank is financing against which commodity, on which terms and all that, and you pick and choose, and automatically there is the processing that is done by the banks. So that is an overview of how the ZMX commodity exchange infrastructure is designed. So it facilitates the handling process, the grading process, inventory and storage management. For example, the warehouse receipt, the ZMX, in accordance with the law, is actually empowered to inspect the commodity that is sitting in any facility that has issued warehouse receipts, number 1. Number 2, every warehouse operator must submit returns to the commodity exchange in terms of the inventory, the quantities, and the quality and the state of the commodities. So that is what speaks to inventory and storage management. Then the issuance of warehouse receipts, order management, when someone now decides that they want to place a buy or sell order, then we do matching and clearing, the settlement, then delivery of goods, and provide display boards that just provides information to everybody who is interested in the commodities. So just a further illustration in terms of the warehouse receipt system. I think I've said most of the stuff, but one of the biggest benefits is that it facilitates aggregation of smallholder farmers, so that these farmers now, just using the technology, they can now have the aggregation so that the transaction costs and inconveniences are reduced. When you are talking about someone having only 30 bags of maize and all that, we then have to aggregate them on the basis of location, communities, and all that, so that for you, the buyers, you now have aggregation in accordance with the grades that are determined during the grading. The other additional information is that we facilitate the enhancement of collateral management as the exchange. So this is something that banks are currently doing when they are lending against the commodities or warehouse receipts, and at a very great cost. Now with a centralized warehouse receipt system and the statutory instruments in place, ZMX is empowered to also add capacity to collateral management for the protection of warehouse receipt holders. The rest, I think I've said before, the receipts are tradable and they are used as a mechanism to settle obligations. So our spot market, the trading, this is always a very interesting discussion. Are we ready as a country for proper market-based trading of commodities? Now, we have 49 commodities that are eligible for the warehouse receipt system, and therefore that ZMX can facilitate trading. Only 4 are controlled. The rest of the 44, they are tradable openly on the open market. Now, the perception around market efficiencies are often confused with the few controlled ones. So what we have done is that we have split the market, the spot market into 2 categories. The category for those that are non-controlled, non-strategic, we just fire the commodity exchange for continuous trading, willing buyer, willing seller, and there is an open price discovery mechanism. Then when we look at the strategic commodities that have certain elements that relate to food security and government policies, we have come up with a Dutch auction system there. The Dutch auction system comes in to address possible imperfections where a perfect open market may not be possible. Therefore, with the Dutch auction system, we are looking at a situation where if the policy is to help sellers, that is producers, then you now come up with a reasonable reserve price. Once the reserve price is agreed, then you then open the auction so that there is trading that respects the reserve price in the auction window. So what we have said is that we then open a window that is characterized by the reserve price just for 1 hour per day for a Dutch auction. After that 1 hour, we now open for open market trading. So for those buyers, sellers who want to enjoy the price guidelines that have been given, can now go into the auction window. If they are unable to sell within the auction window and they can't wait for the next auction window, they are free to trade during the continuous trading window. That way, we then have this working side by side in the sense that during the auction window, the buyers that have been appointed by the government can have access to the commodity, but the sellers can have the choice of, if they are not obviously financed and supported by the government, they have the choice to either wait to be paid through the main auction window, or transact during the continuous trading window. So that's how we have structured this trading. And what I'm saying here is already gazetted in the ZMX rules, statutory instrument 184. Statutory instrument 184. So you obtain that statutory instrument, you see how the auction window is articulated. So the ZMX exchange covers various participants. Producers are key participants. Investors and end users are key participants. Custodian banks, one may ask, why custodian banks? We operate on a pre-funding model. If you want to buy $10,000 worth of a commodity, you need to fund your position with $10,000. But before you get the commodity, those funds are held in trust by a custodian, and settlement cycle is T+3, which means we execute a trade today, in 3 days' time, the seller must be paid and the buyer must have access to the commodity. The exchange also connects settlement banks, financial institutions, these are lenders, logistics operators, warehouses, and regulators. Now, how do you participate as a buyer? Very simple and straightforward. You simply open an account, so the system is available online. Once ZMX approves in liaison with AMA, then that account is active for trading. And then there's pre-funding, then you can easily place a buy order. The process is simple and straightforward. Select a commodity with contract specifications that meet your requirements. So every warehouse receipt contract will categorize according to the grades, according to the quantities. And then you enter the quantity and price, place the order, and if there is a matching sale order, the deal is matched, and it's irrevocable in the sense that ZMX has access to the commodity that is in the warehouse, and has access to the cash that you have deposited with the custodian. So with that, enables ZMX to achieve delivery versus payment. So the commodity ownership switches to the buyer, at the same time funds are switching to the seller, and the settlement finality is achieved. At that point, the buyer now has free access to the commodity. Financing solutions. So there are various instruments. So warehouse receipt financing is one aspect that ZMX facilitates. Warehouse receipts drip access to support bulk commodity purchase. Warehouse receipts discounting. Repos can now come based on commodities, and ZMX also facilitates stop order facilities, especially where you are funding certain farmers against whom you want to recover funds. If they come and trade on ZMX, your interest will already have been registered if you submit details to the ZMX to facilitate the recovery of the funding. Key benefits: market-based sustainable prices, access to dormant capital, upgrading of the storage facilities, cheaper collateral management because it now benefits from economies of scale, reduced information asymmetry, and we expect transaction costs to generally decline. Our country stands to benefit from this initiative in the sense that there is now incentive to produce and maintain quality standards. There is a punishment for poor quality and incentive for good quality. Enhanced food security. In the primary window, for example, the government can determine only the quantity they want for strategic reserve purposes. Once it's done, they can say we are out of the auction window, and the rest can be now traded on the open market. Export competitiveness and boosting agro-processing. Milestones so far: we have registered 22 warehouses. We have financial institutions, this is lenders, that have come on board to express their interest to fund against various commodities. We have 9 merchants that have been registered. We have 3 commodities out of the 49 that we have listed so far because we have been in the pilot window, but having these sessions is now a signal to say we are now getting out of the pilot. We are now going full blown. And we have 18 commodities. Okay, so 18, so we used to have 18, sorry, we haven't updated. These are 49 because we added now a lot of horticultural and livestock commodities. So far, during the pilot window, we have issued 220,000 tons of warehouse receipts. These are largely on maize, for your information. So the next steps, you have heard the mention from AMA that 10 days ago we received approval to start trading wheat. So all the modalities have now been put in place. So next week we will be now starting to trade wheat. We will be now soon listing all the other grains and oilseeds commodities. But as far as horticulture and livestock is concerned, we are inviting warehouse operators that can provide specialized warehouse facilities that enable the handling of these commodities. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you, and we'll be happy to take questions later on. Thank you.
Let's encourage the gentleman. So do you think you now understand it? Do you have a bigger picture of what is happening, a clearer picture? Anyone? Do you? Do you get it? Do you get it like I get it? Say it, guy, if you get it. Say, I get it, Chief. I was kuzibata ezvi, Colin. Zvenge zvapfuura. Okay, guys, so what we're going to do now is we'll have a plenary session. We would like to clarify, take any questions if there are any, so that you leave here having logged on to the website and registered yourself as a buyer and you're trading from here. So Colin is here and the team is also here in the house. If you have any questions from a technical perspective, he has given us the metrics of how this thing is going to run. And the good thing is that we have also the regulator in the house. So if you have any questions as far as security is concerned, please fire away. There's a gentleman there. Please just say your name, your organization, and just fire away.
No, thank you, Colin, and thank you, Chedza, for the invitation. My name is Reneth Mano. I'm from the, today representing the Stock Feed Manufacturers Association of Zimbabwe, the biggest buyer of maize. In Zimbabwe, we require 450,000 metric tons a year. Whether it is available in Zimbabwe or outside of Zimbabwe, we buy it. So we are bankable. We welcome the development, I think, of the ZMX spot market. And we are happy that with AMA's participation, you are now delving into wheat. We are hoping that maize is next, because that's our number one most traded commodities. Two questions. Yesterday, in our crop working group meeting, I posed a question which is attended by Honorable Minister of Agriculture and others, that we understand that wheat delivered to GMB, a warehouse receipt is being generated. And when I made the follow-up question on why that warehouse receipt being issued is not being discounted, or why is it not able to generate the money to offset at least 50% of the money instead of Treasury buying all the wheat? The Bankers Association of Zimbabwe who were present, I hope most of the members you say are on this, said that they are yet to discuss how to discount the warehouse receipt. So my question is, are we on the same page, what the Minister of Agriculture is doing, GMB, and what ZMX initiative is doing? Number two, one of my partner organizations is Grain Millers Association of Zimbabwe. Every time they always raise this issue, that the grades of wheat that are delivered at GMB, when they receive their deliveries, there's a big chasm between what the private milling industry call premium versus what is graded as premium. That creates a major problem with the warehouse receipt system, which means grading and standards are violated not by private sector, but by a government entity that is participating or which is mandated to buy everything. As ZMX, what are the measures you are putting in place that indeed the current government of Zimbabwe, buyer of grain, has been trained and schooled in proper grading and standards that ensures that indeed when wheat is premium, it is premium for the wheat flour, that is also at the wheat miller, and also for the wheat flour. What measures are we putting in place to also make sure that when a warehouse receipt is generated against, say, your partner, GMB, that warehouse receipt is discounted by the 5 banks that you said are partners. Thank you so much. Otherwise, we'll keep on asking these very difficult questions, because what we're trying to do in Zimbabwe is slightly different from what other countries have done. Normally, the first step in launching a warehouse receipt system is to make sure that a grain marketing board monopoly system is actually disbanded, de-weaponized, and put aside. Here, we're trying to make it work in the presence of a monopolistic control system. That's very innovative, very encouraging, very difficult, and as a result, we keep on asking you questions that have nothing to do with the organization, more to do with what our partners in government are doing. And for me, I call it a half-hearted approach to bring in private sector while maintaining control of the marketing system. That's a very costly institutional arrangement. And I hope in your private discussion with the Minister of Agriculture through AMA, you keep on knocking on this, that the greater the space and latitude provided for private sector marketing systems, which were present in Zimbabwe, if we can go back there, then half of our challenges that I believe are slowing down the rollout of ZMX will probably be resolved. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, sir. Would you like to take that on, Colin, or?
Thank you, Dr. Manu. The first question is on whether the warehouse receipt has been fully operationalized and whether there is harmony around its utility. So what I can say is that the wheat that has been delivered, I think in the same meeting you recall, Dr. Manu, yesterday, that the minister actually said, expected that warehouse receipts have been issued against that wheat. Now, government's involvement ends there in terms of policy position to say all wheat delivered, a warehouse receipt must be issued. The rest is operational. Where has this wheat been delivered? And what is the operational capacity of that facility to issue warehouse receipts? This is now determined by how they cope with the ZMX system, and that is work in progress. That's number one. Number two, you recall that government's interest in the delivery of wheat to GMB relates to that wheat that is under various government programs. Which means if you are not under government programs, the only a little inefficiency is that you must be cleared, that you are not under government programs. Once you are cleared, you can take your wheat to any storage facility of your choice. So it becomes a market decision. Do you want the convenience of delivering? If you are self-financed or if you are a private contractor, do you want to store the commodity at GMB or do you want to store elsewhere? That is the marketplace that we are creating here. Warehouses that have been approved and authorized will take wheat. But the only caveat is that the side marketing issue is the problem. The government, what it doesn't want is to have financed wheat and it finds its way in the private sector, private warehouses, and obligations are not met. It is going to be a difficult transition, but I think the principle is very clear to everyone. We have the responsibility of ZMX of now making it work by ensuring we have the operational framework that works. So I'll give you an example. During the pilot, we were then asked by the Ministry of Finance to process warehouse receipts on maize to see if there was capacity even in the public infrastructure. We are satisfied with the outcome of the warehouse receipts that we issued under that program and the follow-up inspections that we did to determine the quantity and the quality of that maize. The consistency going forward is something else, but that relates to how well we will be managing this system, and we are up to the challenge. So, having said that, if the government's position is that all wheat, whether it goes to GMB or private warehouses, a warehouse receipt is issued. That's it. Now, if you are eligible to sell, you now just come to ZMX and sell the wheat. If you have obligations to the government and you want to be paid by GMB, you go and wait to be paid by GMB. So that's just what now needs to be articulated. And we are working on those announcements, which we hope will come out soon. At this moment, we have already started communicating with banks to submit their term sheets if they want to finance against wheat warehouse receipts. As soon as the banks have put in their term sheets, obviously there are other things that have now come up, the 200% lending rates and stuff like that. That is on the BAZ side. But us, we are only infrastructure providers. We just say the banks, go and register your term sheets. Whether the bank says, I'm going to discount at 400%, at 50%, it's a market. We are just a marketplace provider. When it comes to grading, again, it's one of the major motivations of setting up the warehouse receipt system. So the allegations and issues around the grades, unfortunately, without a centralized warehouse receipt system, it's more like one's word against the other, accusations, counter-accusations, and that kind of stuff. But there will be legitimate claims. But with a warehouse receipt system, at the point where you are submitting your commodity, and the warehouse operator is accepting and recording on the warehouse receipt, I've accepted this grade of commodity, that's a contract. And once that contract is broken, there is recourse. As I mentioned, there is recourse in the Warehouse Receipt Act and warehouse receipt regulations. Only that the change now here is documented on a security, on an instrument that is legal. That is the difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin, for trying to answer the good doc there, and I'm sure he's very passionate about it. You can tell, you can feel it. I'm sure this is the conversation that we want for us to be able to open up the markets, number one. Number two, for us to be able to bring Zimbabwe back to where probably it has been before I became Chief Koti. So if there are any other contributions, yes?
Good morning for Colin and also for Peter Mudzimiri from AMA. At what point are we going to see a dovetailing of things like the warehouse receipt system, ZMX, and a stop order arrangement that covers the issue of side marketing? Because I think the two go hand in hand. And certainly I think we've all been asking for some time now for a digital platform where stop orders from whichever entity, whether it be a bank or a contractor, can be lodged and then can be tracked, so that commodity, whether it's sold through ZMX, whether it's delivered to GMB, whether it's delivered directly to a miller, can be tracked. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I didn't get the name. Oh, Mr. Maddock. Okay. We have spoken, we have shared platforms, but the challenge with us all going virtual is you can speak to someone for years without knowing each other. So thank you very much for that question. You'll be delighted to note that that issue of centralized database of stop order is part of the design of the platform. So already we have access. For those contractors who are ready to give us the database, we have already designed it as part of the system. We are going to be spreading the word, because so far we have only got access to the database of those government-supported programs, but we now need to have an outreach for private contractors' databases as well. So our position is that we will not allow, as much as we can control it, for ZMX to be used as a side marketing facility for people to run away from their contractual obligations. So we will urge all contractors to ensure that they communicate or give us access to their database for when the marketing season starts, and the system for ZMX actually queries to see if someone is free of any obligations before they are allowed to trade. Thank you.
Would the authority like to add anything?
Thank you, Maddock, for that question. I think it's something that we have been discussing And you will note that the Farmers Stop Order Act is actually a very old act. And what we've done is the regulator is that because in terms of that act, it is the permanent secretary who is allowed to, or who is designated as the registrar of the stop orders. So what we have done is we have written to the ministry, and now I'm happy to announce that AMA has been designated as the registrar or administrator of that stop order. So now what you are now doing is seeking cabinet approval so that we will then be able to operationalize the act. But it's something that we will then sit down with ZMX to ensure that we are aligned in terms of how we then roll out the stop order system. But it's something that is work in progress. Thank you.
Work in progress. Let's hope it will move.
Yes, my name is Kamau from Blue Ribbon. The system of warehousing and the recept works very well, especially in the European countries. But here, my question is about quality. The farmer has delivered good quality grain to the warehouse, but the quality deteriorates during storage. Who is responsible for this deterioration? Especially if the farmer delivers a premium grade of wheat, but whatever comes out is poor, and the buyers cannot accept the grain. Thank you.
That is a lot of risk there, Colin. Would you like to take that? Okay.
I think I will share the burden. ZMX, who wants to take this? Tatenda, do you want to take it? I will just, okay, just so that you hear from another voice, our expert in that area is Tatenda Maswedza. Okay.
So, I mean, to begin with, I mean, grain naturally doesn't last forever. So, if you are a farmer and you put your grain into the warehouse receipt system, the obligation that the warehouse has is usually 90 days. To say I can keep it as grade A for 90 days. Now, if you go beyond 90 days, it can deteriorate in quality, and the warehouse will regrade and say, okay, Tatenda, your grade A is now grade C because A and B has happened. So you are entitled to getting grade A up to 90 days, or if they decide to extend, depending on warehouse and to warehouse, maybe to 180 days. If they stretch it that far, you are only entitled to getting your grade A within the period of the contract. And if you don't get your grade A within that period, then the warehouse is liable. But when it comes to trading, if the warehouse doesn't regrade the product, and actually a farmer goes on to trade and say, I've got grade A, the order is pushed into the market, and they match as grade A, the buyer expects to get grade A, the liability falls on the warehouse operator. So the warehouse operator might be back logistics. It means now that there now has to be a dispute resolution between back logistics and the buyer, where the product is sent for regrading to check if it's really true that the claim that is being made by the buyer that actually I've been given leaves as grade A. After we do the regrading, us facilitating that as ZMX, then we can then force the warehouse operator to compensate if there is a variance between delivered grain and bought grain. Or maybe if it was a very huge transaction, we can actually facilitate cancelling of the order, where that risk cannot be, absorbed by the system. Maybe it's a $200,000 order. then maybe we can facilitate cancelling of such an order and return liabilities to where they belong.
Okay, so to add to this, the warehouse receipt is a contract. It is a contract between the warehouse facility and the depositor, with the commodity exchange coming in now to regulate and ensure there is dispute resolution, there is recourse, which is anchored at law. And the law requires that there is full insurance of the commodity against what we would call other unexpected occurrences that can affect the grade. So maybe there are acts of God and all that stuff. So a warehouse operator must also ensure that there is full insurance cover for the value of commodities that they have accepted, which is in favor of the registrar. So when the event occurs, the insurance company does not pay the warehouse operator. It pays the registrar to then compensate the holders. So I think the act, the laws and the processes that were put in place try as much as possible to minimize that risk. But of course, as we all know, risk cannot totally be eliminated. Thank you.
Thank you very much for responding there quite elaborately, but I'm sure risk is always a very big issue, especially in this kind of business. Anyone else who wants to say something?
Thank you. Simbarashi Chichokwe, Keynes Foods. As a private player, I just wanted to understand, maybe I didn't get it clearly, who exactly does the grading? Do you have the capacities in place? Do you have the machinery in place? Because as a private player, we have these challenges with farmers all the time regarding the grades. So I'm just coming back to this again. Then my second question, supposing I invest in what you are saying is the futures market, do you have resources in place? Say I want, say, 200 tons of sugar beans next season. I invest in the futures market. Do you have resources in place to ensure that I get that tonnage? Do you have, I don't know, agronomy people to confirm that the stock is going to come through? What happens if there's a drought? How do we then, how do you then ensure that I get the stock? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. The first question, is Ebert here? Oh, okay. I will take the second one. Or Tatenda will take the second one.
Morning, everyone. All right, so for the first question, I think as in one of the presentations, it was said that every warehouse operator needs to meet certain standards that have been set by the Act. And part of those standards actually relate to the grading equipment and software. So you will not get approval from the registrar of the warehouses if you do not meet those standards for your warehouses. Obviously, there is some work still being done to develop this because, as we're all aware, this is a new product. And we enjoy having sessions like this with you because you then educate us on some of the things we need to improve on. But like I said, if you do not have the requisite infrastructure at the warehouse, then you will not be licensed. Tatenda?
Okay, thank you very much, Farai, for that. So on the question to do with futures, as in who will be liable. So I mean, if it's a futures market, and we are talking about a market a contract that hasn't been listed yet. So currently speaking, it's not a contract that is there yet. You can't trade futures. But when it's a futures market, the exchange now becomes a clearinghouse. And as a clearinghouse, it will guarantee you that you get your grade. If you are a buyer, it will guarantee both the quality and the quantity. And you actually be able to rate that clearinghouse and say, is this clearinghouse with this type of a balance sheet able to make that guarantee? So that's, I mean, the guarantee that you get if you transact in a futures market. But currently, I mean, if you come today, that contract doesn't exist yet. We are still going through the spot market. As the market matures, naturally it will start moving towards futures market, which would then cannibalize the spot market. But currently, that's something that you can't do today. But when it comes, the exchange will be the clearinghouse, and it will guarantee you the financial performance of that of whatever contract you have gone into. And just maybe to just add a little bit flair onto that. So if it's a futures market, normally you are not even guaranteed in terms of quality. What you are mainly talking about is just, it's a contract for maize. And even if it comes at grade C, you still get that grade C, but with maybe penalties for different levels of grades. So as such, the exchange also, the clearinghouse, will then have enough capacity to find whatever grain is there at that time and deliver to you if various players fail. And maybe to just add more, so even in that same futures market, because I mean you really expressed interest in it, the players that play, I mean that place the order on behalf of you, I mean the brokers, they also have got capital requirements. So they put in place capital with the clearinghouse to make sure that whenever one side of the transaction defaults, the exchange can fall on that broker's capital. So I mean, that's basically the structure of the clearinghouse when that particular contract comes through.
So commodity derivatives is the final destination where we will be talking about the futures. So normally you establish a derivatives market when you now have a good track record in terms of the spot market, because you take a position based on your analysis of the behavior of the spot market. Our intention is that we will need at least 6 months of continuous trading on the spot market for any product before we start bringing on board the futures market. And when it comes to futures market, one other point that Tatenda ought to have mentioned is that everyone who buys futures contracts must deposit money into a margin account. So it's more like a deposit to guarantee performance. So the farmer who is on the other side of the contract has to deposit something as a performance bond, and the buyer has to deposit something. From that pool, a clearinghouse now has the resources to address situations of default. That market starts when you now also have full capitalization for the exchange to play the clearinghouse role. That is where we are going. And before anyone thinks this is a pie in the sky, the contract farming, the contracts that you are already doing, once they become standardized and they have margin accounts, they become easily futures contracts. Thank you.
The last line was quite interesting, I guess. Anyone with any burning issue? The good doctor wants to come back again.
On a very separate note, I know you say you have 49 commodities now listed. And I know in previous meetings we have requested from stock feed manufacturers consideration for additional products. This is from our meetings with the grain millers and from oil expressors. We have realized that there are certain commodities that are not controlled, but that I believe are traded, can be traded easily on ZMX spot market, and probably early on introduced to the futures market, because they're already traded in other countries. I will just mention them for your strategic planning, and that's my job. We want to broaden this so that we reduce the risk borne by our Bakresa group there, Blue Ribbons and others, to say, when, for example, wheat is milled, right? Normally we talk wheat, yeah, but in the business of product utilization, wheat, there are several products that come from wheat. And of interest to us in the stock feed industry is wheat bran. Yeah, 20% of the wheat ends up being bran. And these guys end up with stockpiles of bran, right? And they don't have the capacity to store. They want to get rid of it very fast. And the stock feed companies can't buy the annual requirements and store them. So I see really like a match made in heaven. You guys coming in to offer the warehousing, or little traders or dealers, not you as a ZMX, but your partners. Take the problem from the millers, convert that into a derivative product, put it on the auction so that stock feed manufacturer can buy as they wish every month, right? That way, there will be no pressure for us to export. So as soon as we can buy what they've milled with the brand, they go to the Ministry of Agriculture and say, we want to export. Yeah, we're exporting our competitiveness to South Africa and importing powdered milk and porkers. I think in the end, you say agriculture is not performing, but we are exporting our raw materials. And we engaged with these guys over and over again, and we realized the solution really lies with the intermediation role of an intermediary which doesn't exist. And I'm glad you are now here, we can have a conversation. These guys are here, we are here, you are there. The three of us can come up with a solution to this problem. That's the wheat bran issue. There's other products there, similarly for maize bran, after maize is milled, is sold the bran, then they have a problem because we can't just buy all of it. So from cotton, for example, there is the cotton seed itself, right? The seed itself, cotton is burdened with the seed, and then it sells it to oilseed expressors. Then the oilseed expressors want to crush it immediately and get their 20%, which is oil. The 80% or more is your cotton seed mill, yeah, and cotton house. Those two products now, they don't have storage for them. And they immediately, when their warehouses are full, they say, please, stock feed manufacturer, can you buy? We can't buy annual requirements in a 1 week or in a month, right? So there's a missing storer of that product. Yeah, I can go on with these products, all oil seeds. Normally you see oil seeds, people go to oil expressors, but no, 20% is their share, 80% is our share, right? And the market is completely misinformed, and hence the product is completely poorly priced, because you are pricing the oil and probably not pricing right the cotton seed mill, which we value more. So farmers are shortchanged, because it's even worse. For farmers, they are paid for the lint, not even for the seed, right? So imagine how much you can unlock value when you say that when you talk cotton, you are talking cotton lint, cotton seed, which can be broken down into cotton seed oil, and cotton seed house, and cotton seed mill. The farmer is producing how many products? And out of all those products, do you really think that we can't pay farmers to produce more? I mean, you see why market failures and failure to communicate what is meant from what the industry wants when they look at a cotton field. What we see and what the farmer sees are two different things. And market intermediation provides that communication. And this is why sometimes I'm passionate about this, and I'm pushing your envelope, I know. But we need to move into that area. And it's not a greenfield, it's done already. These are products that exist and are traded in other countries, so it's cut and copy and paste. Yeah, we would want that to happen as soon as possible. So all seeds, I mean sunflower, for example, I think that's one product that the government very happily has onboarded, but the market is really right now aching. I mean, even the seed companies can't commit to produce the seed because the market is not yet clear. And yet we're importing cooking oil from Brazil, from Ukraine and others, when we can produce sunflower in most countries, in most of our districts here. Markets are failing that sector. So my challenge to ZMX is that, and the AMA please, as well, our partner in agriculture, is really to sit down and, in my opinion, look at what products are traded in South Africa, in Brazil, in Chicago, and let's see other products for which government has not really, caused a lot of problems in terms of regulation. We can come in as private sector and start to demonstrate that our business-to-business partnership can solve a lot of the problems, to give government the confidence to say, now you can deal with maize, right, and guarantee food security for the nation, just like South Africa, where government holds no grain, but South Africa is assured of, food security by private sector partnerships. So I'm challenging us, not just you and me and others, in the agricultural value chains we're talking about, to say, let's do more than the minimum. Let's try to work through the easy, low-hanging fruits, the list of commodities I'm talking about here, which can solve problems between business, between the value chains I'm talking about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc.
Thank you, Dr. Manu. We always enjoy talks with you and the challenges that you throw our way. And definitely we have been looking into it. So I think without going into, I think you have been very exhaustive in terms of your advice and all that. So we're just looking at it from a legal perspective, and we have our legal teams here to say, when a product is put into the statutory instrument, does it mean it's just that product, or its derivatives, or byproducts and all that? So there is a view that we are taking on that, and we'll just consult so that we don't labor the ministry with so many statutory instruments over things that are very straightforward to say, you know, if it is, wheat, and then you have a category that says wheat bran. Surely someone can't say you are doing something illegal. So it's just about whether it's grading, whether it's about, implication to say a product. But we have our legal team seized with that matter. But we definitely take that challenge, and we are really pursuing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin. Anything else? Oh.
Thank you. Good morning. Diana Sherto from FeedMix. We do livestock feed. I'm sure you are all familiar with us. My question is around the hidden costs surrounding the trade. Okay, I heard you mention that the product can be purchased and kept for 90 days to 180 days by extension. What are the costs involved there? Who's bearing the storage costs? When does ownership pass on from the seller to the buyer? Those intricate details, how are those other things which are then discussed separately off of the forum? Because the warehousing system is, it's not the physical. So obviously there's a physical aspect to it. How are we dealing with those?
You want to take that?
Thanks, Colin. All right, so I'll try and break this into two pieces. There's the storage side of things. So we've got the leg from the farm to the warehouse, and that's the farmer's cost. And then we've got the storage from point of delivery up until point of sale. Our point of sale is system driven. And the good thing with this is, I think Colin mentioned that all warehouse operators must have systems that match up to our systems. The reason for this is it's a digital platform, so all activities that happen on the platform are connected to what's happening at the warehouses. So when you arrive at the warehouse and your goods are brought in, the system already knows that you have received something, and we start a timer on that note. When your trade clears on the exchange, notification is sent to the warehouse, which effects a change of ownership from the producer to the purchaser. And from that point, the costs then start accruing for storage to the purchaser. But remember, the purchaser can withdraw the commodities as soon as the transaction is cleared. If they want to be issued with a new warehouse receipt to keep that commodity still in the warehouse, they can do so. Or alternatively, they can then take the commodity out of warehouse and enter into a separate arrangement with the warehouse operator, or alternatively remove their product. One of the discussions we've had with warehouse operators is to try and standardize the costs so that we don't have differing cost structures across the exchange. So we have a standardized costings for your handling in charges, your storage charges across all the currently registered warehouse operators. Then on the other hand, you've obviously got then your transaction costs on the platform. So that's just your commissions for trades in and out, both buyer side and sell side.
Sorry, if I can follow up. Have you looked at the aspects of double handling? Is there an option where the seller can actually have a direct delivery to the buyer at any point? Because remember, as end users, we're specifically looking at bringing our costs lowest. So this could actually then make you become obsolete, because if you're going to add on our costs instead of reduce them.
All right. Unfortunately, at the current point, because we have to issue a warehouse receipt, the commodity needs to get through the warehouse. So that's what necessitates us receiving it in the warehouse. Because remember, we then have to validate the commodity, grade the commodity, and ensure that the commodity meets your standards. But however, I know, Colin, there are some programs that we're working on in the future to try and manage that, because it has come to attention. It's not the first time we've heard of it. But because we need to issue a warehouse receipt, the commodity needs to get into the warehouse.
Colin, would you like to add, or you're okay?
Yeah, so the process is anchored on the laws, and the key law is Warehouse Receipt Act. So all the obligations are centered around the Warehouse Receipt Act, which requires that the warehouse receipt is issued. But what can happen is that you can actually minimize the time that the commodity stays within the facility. So if you just limit it to a day or so, it just comes in and out, then you minimize your costs. But there has to be a contractual documentation, and it is only the warehouse receipt.
Thank you very much for those questions, comments. Anyone else with something burning before I shut down the morning?
Good day. My name is Mojei Tetenda, and I'm a freelance journalist. I'd like to thanks to Sandra for the invitation. And I would like to commend Zeremex in terms of the changes that they've implemented on their basic product outline. I think basically about 2 months ago, when they launched this platform at their offices, they've since put up new products, and so I'd like to commend them for their role that they've been playing. But like my question was in relation to partnerships with Zimtrade and perhaps other initiatives that government is putting in place to see to it that it markets its agro industry, like the recently launched Zimbabwe-Zambia Agro-Industrial Park. How have you seen to it that you partner with these guys, so that you get the best price internationally? Like maybe for Zimtrade, considering that they are working in partnerships with a lot of interested importers of Zimbabwean local agro products. How are you partnering with them to see to it that you retain the best prices for your producers? And at the same time, in terms of cyber security, we're living in an era where there is cyber security, and your system seems to be online based. How are you guaranteeing the public and your users' safety in terms of the highest ethical cyber secure standards on your platform? I thank you.
Thank you very much. Colin, you'd like to take that?
Yes, thank you. Yes, the partnerships. Okay, we are still getting to our feet. We are still young, trying to get the basics right, and definitely in our roadmap, the likes of Zimtrade are definitely on our list. But for now, we just want to get off the ground, get the basics right, and then scale up as we go. So there's going to be a lot of those interactions going forward. Cyber security, I think we are already tried and tested, so we are very much experienced in this business. We have been driving securities market for a long time now, and we are just piggybacking on the capacity that we have built over the years. So we come from the capital markets, securities markets, stock markets, not only in Zimbabwe, but across the region. And we do have very strong systems in place that have withstood various, stress testing and continuous assessment of our platforms. Our regulators are also very keen on our securities standards and security protocols, and we are always on our toes, and we also get frequently audited. Our ecosystem requires us to integrate with banks and our systems work very closely with the banks, and they don't also, they make sure that they deploy their standards on our system so that we don't introduce risks into the banking systems. Based on that, I think you can be assured that we not only have 2, 3, 4 pairs of eyes looking at the securities protocols, but we have several eyes that keep us on our toes. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Colin, for that elaborate response. I think it's a question that is in a lot of our minds because we're into this digital era right now, but it's not very secure. You know, we've seen a lot of people being hacked and all sorts of things going on. So thank you, my brother, for asking that question. Very pertinent at this point. But I rest assured that your experience and your expertise within the sector, within the industry, will definitely keep things safe. There's one more? Okay, I'm going to take 2 more, and then we wrap it up, yeah? The gentleman there with the blue shirt.
Thank you. My name is Pastor Pamira. I represent Radon Investments, Stockfeed. I come from the Good Docs background. Right. The doctor mentioned that for our requirements, especially for these products that are commodities that are being traded on the exchange, most of them we are doing hand to mouth as a nation. See, for your maize, for your soya beans, it's pretty much hand to mouth. So I'm not sure if this exchange market is going to be very relevant in terms of, because my understanding is that these exchanges are most successful in countries where there is a glut and there's a lot of overproduction vis-a-vis requirements. So coming into a situation as ours in Zimbabwe where everything we're doing hand to mouth, I don't know how you're going to be able to manage that. The second question is that, are you going to be, maybe linked to the first one, are you going to also get yourself involved in imported commodities? Because as Stockfeed producers, we also, I think the bulk of our requirements, maybe bulk is a bit of an overstatement, but quite a big chunk of our commodities that we use are imported. So are you going to, as a market, also be delving into imported commodities, or you're just basing yourselves on local production? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I take your point on the volumes that they are low, but of course, from hand to mouth, there has to be a system. So the little that we provide, we are just saying, let's make the most of it by reducing post-harvest losses. So the commodities exchange is not just about trading, it's about the warehouse receipt system. The warehouse receipt system is about us looking at the little that we produce and saying, let's curtail the losses, which are estimated to be between 25 and 35% that just get wasted because of unstructured storage systems. So we are producing little and we lose a lot from the little. So let's come up with a system that curtails that. That will make a good difference. That will make a difference. When we have done that, we then just say, let the farmer get a good price, let there be correct price information, and the best option to do that is to have a commodity exchange. We have actually looked at this and tested its viability based on our capacity, and we are satisfied that within our scale, we are going to make it viable. However, having said that, we have built this not for today, we have not built this not for tomorrow, we have built it for posterity. So we believe it is still something on the basis of which we will increase from the little to the actual optimum volumes that we want by stimulating the farmers who now have predictability that if I plant and harvest and I deliver, I'm going to be paid within 3 days. What happens with a farmer who gets paid after 6 months? What is the motivation for next season? So once we bring in that predictability, we are hoping that we can actually increase productivity. With the example of soybean, the estimates that we produce may be 60, 70, 80,000, depending on who you listen to. Yet we need about 300,000 tons, probably 600,000 if we want to export. So if with a commodity exchange, bringing in futures markets and all that, if you tell the farmer that if you grow wheat, soybean, you are going to get this much, isn't that a stimuli for production of the commodity? What will be the single most credible source of that information for those investment decisions is the commodity exchange. That's what we are trying to do. Even if we are only 14 million, 15 million as a country, why can't we go back to the times when we can feed the whole continent? I think a commodity exchange will help us achieve that. The second question in terms of importations and all that, we are positioning ZMX to be the window through which exports and imports can also be handled in a transparent manner. For your information, we're actually talking to other regional or other similar outfits in countries around us, so that we have a solution that looks inwards into our country, but also a solution that talks to others near us, because we are one big market. We are strong in certain commodities and we are weak in other commodities. If we can have market-based equilibrium that is achieved, then ZMX is also designed to represent Zimbabwe at the international stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin. Very assuring. I hope we will be able to have set up this in a very seamless manner when we get to that season of plenty. Very good question, my brother. I think it's very, very pertinent, especially the first one. We are living hand to mouth at the moment, yeah? But we need to look forward and start preparing now as we are getting into a season of plenty. I think the good doc is agreeing with me. Sir?
Mine is to clarify a question that was asked by Afid Mina about reducing costs. When we were discussing warehousing receipts system during COVID time, what we were told is that anybody can register to be a warehouser, which means that you have to meet the conditions of a warehouse, and this warehousing is not limited to GMB. Any manufacturer can also be a warehouse, can have the system, and by so doing, we'll also be reducing our costs. I just wanted to clarify this, that we can also register to be a warehouse operator. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that will wrap up my plenary session because my time is killing me. We need to go out there and start farming. We now have a platform for trading, so we need to go and actually produce. So at this point in time, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to call upon the company secretary, Ms. Fadzai, to come through and give us a vote of thanks. Let's encourage her.
Thank you so much. So just riding on the protocols that have been observed, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and honorable guests. Just on behalf of our management and board of directors of the Zimbabwe Mercantile Exchange, ZMX, I'd like to thank you all for heeding the call to participate in developing a commodities market and providing us with the feedback and input this morning. The Agricultural Marketing Authority, your continued support and encouragement to innovate is what drives us to succeed as the nation's commodities exchange.